Wait, before you skip this video, let me ask you something. Do you remember your first motorcycle? Not the fastest one, not the most expensive one, but the one that changed something inside you. Because this is not a review. This is not a comparison. This is not cruiser versus sport. This is a letter. Dear my first motorcycle, I still remember the day I brought you home. You weren't brand new. You weren't shiny like the showroom bikes. Your chrome had tiny scratches. Your exhaust had a deeper tone than it should have. Your seat had that slight worn-in crease, like someone else had already trusted you with their story. But when I saw you parked there, I didn't see metal. I saw freedom. Not the loud kind, not the rebellious movie scene kind, but the quiet, personal kind. The kind that whispers instead of shouts. People told me I should buy a sport bike. They said, "You're young, you need speed." They said cruisers are for old men. They said I'd regret not choosing horsepower. They talked about 0 to 60 times, top speed numbers, track days, lean angles. But when I sat on you for the first time, feet forward, hands wide, back relaxed, it didn't feel like speed. It felt like America. The first night ride was unforgettable. Empty streets, cold air brushing against my jacket, streetlights reflecting off your tank like moving stars. I remember my hands slightly shaking on the handlebars, not from fear, but from excitement. I didn't even go fast. I just cruised. And for the first time in a long time, my mind was quiet. No job pressure, no bills waiting on the kitchen table, no notifications buzzing in my pocket, no expectations about who I should be or what I should become. Just engine vibration and open road. You weren't trying to win races. You weren't screaming at high RPM. You weren't demanding attention. You were steady, confident, calm. And somehow that calm fixed something in me. We rode everywhere together. Early morning highway runs where the sun slowly painted the sky orange. Late night gas station stops where strangers would nod in quiet respect. Weekend escapes outside the city where the road stretched so far it felt like it touched the horizon. I remember riding across long stretches of highway, watching the sunset over the horizon. The kind of sunset that makes the sky look like it's on fire. The kind that makes you realize how small you are. Cars would pass, sport bikes would zoom by, engines screaming like they were chasing something urgent. But I never felt slow, because I wasn't chasing speed. I was chasing space. Space to breathe, space to think, space to reset. That's what you gave me. You became part of my routine. Saturday mornings meant coffee in one hand, helmet in the other. Sunday evenings meant one last ride before the work week swallowed everything again. Sometimes I take the long way home, not because I had time, but because I needed it. There's something about cruising at 55 miles per hour on an open American highway. Wind steady, engine rumbling beneath you like a heartbeat. It feels honest. No filters, no edits, no performance, just you and the road. You weren't perfect. Sometimes you refused to start on cold mornings. Sometimes your idle was rough. Sometimes your fuel gauge lied to me and I had to push you to the nearest station. But those imperfections made you real. I learned how to check oil levels, how to adjust cables, how to clean chrome until it reflected the sky like a mirror. I remember sitting in the garage late at night, wiping you down after a long ride, not because you were dirty, but because it felt like gratitude. You weren't just transportation, you were responsibility. And in taking care of you, I learned to take care of myself. There were nights I didn't tell anyone where I was going. I'd just grab my helmet, turn the key, listen to that deep rumble come alive, and ride. Across bridges lit by city lights, through quiet neighborhoods where porch lights glowed softly, down highways that felt endless and infinite. You became my therapy. When life felt heavy, when relationships ended, when work drained every bit of energy, when self-doubt whispered louder than confidence, I rode. And somehow, every mile made the weight lighter. No music needed, no conversation needed, no validation needed. Just wind, just motion, just forward. People don't talk about this part enough. Motorcycles aren't just machines in America. They are symbols. Freedom, independence, escape, reinvention. On those long roads, cutting through deserts, mountains, and small forgotten towns, you feel something ancient, like the country itself is reminding you why movement matters. You weren't just my first bike. You were my first taste of independence without permission. No one could tell me how to ride. No one could tell me where to go. The throttle responded to my hand. The road responded to my courage. That kind of control is addictive. Eventually, life changed. Promotions happened, responsibilities grew, money increased. And one day, I upgraded. More horsepower, more technology, traction control, ride modes, sharper styling. The new bike was faster, sharper, lighter, objectively better in almost every measurable way. On paper, it was superior. The acceleration pinned me back. The handling felt precise. The sound was aggressive. It impressed people, but the first time I rode it home, something felt different. It was thrilling, but it wasn't comforting. It didn't feel like home. It felt like performance. You knew my awkward throttle control when I was nervous. You knew how I leaned slightly left on long rides. You knew my rhythm. The new bike gave me adrenaline. You gave me identity. Sometimes I see a cruiser parked outside a diner. Same relaxed stance, same chrome shine, same low rumble that vibrates through the pavement. And for a second, time bends. I'm back on that first night ride, back to empty highways, back to the version of me that was still figuring life out, back to a time when I didn't have everything planned, back to uncertainty feeling exciting instead of terrifying. You weren't just my first motorcycle. You were the bridge between who I was and who I became. People argue online all the time. Cruiser versus sport, torque versus horsepower, comfort versus speed, old school versus modern. But they miss the point. Your first bike isn't about specs. It's about story. It's about who you were when you twisted that throttle for the first time. It's about the courage it took to ride alone. It's about the fear you conquered at your first intersection. It's about the pride you felt after your first long ride without stalling. In a country built on highways, on freedom of movement, on the idea that you can leave and start again, motorcycles aren't just machines. They are chapters. And you, my first motorcycle, you were chapter 1. If you're watching this and you still own your first bike, don't take it for granted. One day it will become a memory. And memories don't have resale value. They have emotional value. And if you've already moved on, take a moment tonight. Close your eyes. Remember the first ride, the nervous excitement, the shaky clutch release, the overwhelming feeling of, I'm actually doing this. Remember how small the world felt at first, and how big it became once you hit the highway. That feeling, you never forget it. Dear my first motorcycle, thank you. For the miles, for the lessons, for the breakdowns that taught patience, for the silence when I needed peace, for the noise when I didn't want to think, for teaching me balance, literally and metaphorically. You weren't the fastest. You weren't the flashiest. You weren't perfect, but you were mine. And in a world that constantly pushes us to upgrade, to move on, to chase the next best thing, you remind me that the first chapter is often the most powerful, because it's where everything begins. And in America, we don't just ride motorcycles. We ride memories. We ride growth. We ride the versions of ourselves we used to be. And somewhere on some quiet highway at sunset, I know you're still there, waiting, rumbling softly, like a heartbeat I'll never forget.